The day the stars burned crimson above the capital, I knew the galaxy had changed forever. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this throne room. Not when the alien queen herself glared at me with eyes that could fracture planets. Yet there I stood, heart hammering, and at my side, her daughter, smiling in defiance. The council had called me a mere human, a fragile thing. And yet here I was, the pivot upon which an empire's future would tilt. My hands were still slick with the soot of the ship I had repaired in record time. I hadn't come to fight, not yet. But fate had a way of dragging me into battles I didn't know I'd chosen. "Do you understand what you risk?" the queen hissed, her voice like molten metal flowing across the room. "One wrong step, and this hall, this planet, the entire sector will fall." I swallowed hard. The alien language was sharp in my ears, jagged and precise, yet the meaning was clear. She would not tolerate failure. I glanced at her daughter, the princess, standing just behind me, eyes alight with that impossible fire. She did not step back. She did not tremble. She simply said, "I know what I want." A shiver ran down my spine. What did she want? And why had the queen's glare softened just a fraction? But that was only the beginning. The princess had always been different. While others feared the human uprising, she watched, learned, and dared. They whispered she was reckless, but when I saw her navigate the complex systems of her mother's worship, I understood. Her mind was sharp, faster than any algorithm, yet compassionate in ways the council could not fathom. "What are you doing, human?" she asked, stepping closer. Her voice carried through the hall, calm and clear, unafraid of her mother's wrath. I'm helping you," I admitted. "I don't know why, but I can't stand by and watch anyone be crushed for what they believe." She laughed, a short, musical sound, and my stomach tightened. The queen's eyes narrowed, and I knew she had not expected this audacity. What I saw next changed everything. The room had grown impossibly still. The generals, the counselors, even the guards, none dared breathe. The princess took my hand and lifted it slightly. Her gaze never wavered from her mother's. "You choose freedom over the throne, over power, over expectation," the queen whispered, though none could hear over the charged silence. "And yet, you stand unbroken." Her words were not directed at me. They never were. They were meant for her daughter. I didn't understand it at first. How could one human influence the choice of a royal heiress? But then I saw the mark on my forearm, the insignia of a lineage long thought extinct, a symbol the queen had sworn to destroy. It glowed faintly beneath my skin, a beacon she recognized even across the cold gulf of history. The room shifted. Whispers darted like lightning between the walls. None of us had been prepared for the truth. The mark meant I was not just human, I was the descendant of a warrior who had once saved her people from annihilation. And that was only the beginning. The queen's posture changed, subtly but unmistakably. She had ruled through fear and logic for centuries, yet now she hesitated. She saw the bloodline in me, the same courage that had defied her ancestors, and suddenly, her empire felt fragile. "Do you know what this means?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The princess grinned, a spark of triumph in her eyes. "It means I choose him." Silence swallowed the room. You could hear the air shift, the weight of history pressing down on us. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. And then, the queen went silent. Not angry. Not afraid. Silent. It was more terrifying than rage because it carried recognition. Understanding. Perhaps even awe. What I saw next changed everything. The counselors whispered among themselves, but their words were meaningless. The true shift had occurred. The bond between a human and an alien princess, forged in defiance and understanding, had rewritten the rules of an empire. Strategies, alliances, centuries of expectation, all meaningless in the face of this choice. I looked at the princess, who now stood proudly beside me. Her hand in mine felt warm, alive with certainty. "Do you trust me?" she asked. I nodded. "With my life." Her smile widened, and in that instant, the queen, the most feared ruler in the sector, stepped aside, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement. The galaxy had just witnessed a moment no one had anticipated. The princess took my hand and led me forward. Each step echoed through the hall, a drumbeat heralding change. The queen's silence stretched, but it was not empty. It was contemplative. The ancient empress was calculating, realizing that love, courage, and loyalty might be stronger than any fleet or weapon she commanded. "Wait! This is not what I expected," muttered one general to another, and I knew he spoke for the entire hall. By the time we reached the throne, the queen's gaze softened, her sharp edges rounding just enough to show the first hint of humanity, or perhaps humility. She studied me as though reading an ancient text. Her lips moved in a silent command. The words weren't for me. They were for the universe, the war, the empire, and the rules that had bound them for millennia were shifting. The princess turned, eyes glowing with quiet power, and whispered, "You will always be part of this." And in that moment, I understood the enormity of the choice. I was not just a human, not just a soldier. I was a catalyst, a spark that would ignite change far beyond this hall, far beyond this galaxy. The queen finally spoke, and her voice trembled in ways I had never imagined. "Prepare, the alliances will follow. Let history remember this day." Every eye in the room widened. The generals, the counselors, the guards, all were stunned into obedience by a single, quiet command. They could not comprehend it, but they felt its weight. The queen's silence had ended, and in its place was recognition of something greater than power, unity forged not through fear, but through choice. The princess squeezed my hand, her eyes softening with gratitude. "You have changed everything," she said. And I realized she was not speaking to me alone. She was speaking to the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the alien queen stepped back, and the human and alien sides of this universe stared at each other not as enemies, but as witnesses to a bond that defied expectation. The hall hummed with potential, and the stars outside seemed to burn brighter, as though acknowledging the birth of a new era. What I saw next changed everything, I whispered to myself. The galaxy had not ended. It had evolved, and in the silence, broken only by the soft whispers of those who could see the future, I knew one thing with certainty. This choice, the human, the princess, the queen, would echo for millennia. The war, the politics, the fear, they all faded in the face of something simpler, something raw, courage, love, and the audacity to choose differently. I looked at the princess one last time, and she smiled. The queen met my gaze, and her silence now carried a different meaning: respect, recognition, and a promise unspoken but deeply understood. The galaxy would never be the same again. And I would never forget the day the alien queen went silent.